Welcome back to Design Mastery. In this chapter, we are going to continue with components, but this time we're going to be creating advanced components. If I should select this component here, you notice this have some properties here. I can easily hide the label, which is the email there, and we can as well change the state of this to error. You can decide to select this and change that to success. If you even want, you can decide to show this label and also show an icon here. If you're not okay or satisfied with this icon and you want to change this to a different icon, we can select this and add a different icon. These are some of the advanced features of components that we're going to be learning in this section. And after that, we're going to move to user research and how we can build a user persona with the help of an AI tool called ChatGPT. From here, I'm going to introduce the design for our final project, which is an online laundry app. So I'm working on the wireframes. This is to give you a head start. I will share the wireframes with you and you're going to build the high fidelity. I'm making sure that all the designs here are inch perfect so that you can easily convert them to high fidelity. The editable part of this wireframes will be made available to those that have purchased the lesson note. You will still get this wireframe even without purchasing the lesson note, but it's not going to be editable. After that, we are now going to look at responsive designs and how we can apply them in your UI design. An example here is this column that we're going to be creating for responsive designs. If you drag this to the iPad screen, this is automatically going to change to 2 columns. If you drag that to the mobile screen, it's going to be 1 column. All this is how to use a responsive design in Figma. And we also have some inputs here that when they reach a particular breakpoint, you cannot increase it. And when you adjust that to a tiny breakpoint, you cannot go below that. If you're new to my channel, please kindly hit the subscribe button and let's get into it. I want to answer a question here. What if the width of the button you want is longer than this? All you need to do is to select the button and you can increase the width of this button. And for the height, I don't recommend increasing the height because we have the difference here. So you can do that with any of this button. You can select that and then just increase the width. And you notice that this is highly responsive. To explain components and how they work better, we are going to move back to the login screen we created initially at the beginning of this bootcamp. If you look at this, let's say I want to now make adjustment to this input fields. If I should select this first one here and I try to, let's say, fix the corner radius, let's say we want something like this 8. You notice that I will make the changes here before I'll come back here and make the changes. So this is going to be very difficult to maintain, especially if you have more than 2 inputs. With the help of components, we can create just one item that we can edit and make changes, and it's going to affect the email and as well as the password. I'm going to take this back to 4. So all we need to do is to select one of this here. Let's say the email. I'll press Ctrl D to duplicate this. I will drag this outside this home screen here. So we have one of this input field. We want to convert this to a Figma component. And to do that, you can go to this right hand side and click on this icon here to create component. So I'll click on this. Now we have a component. What I'm going to do here is to rename this to input. With the help of this now, we can add some properties to this. The first, we're going to add this email here. It's going to be our label. So double click here. And then when you select this particular text, scroll down to where you are having email. You're going to see this arrow here. Now click on this to create this property. So this is going to be label. Then the value that is going to be stored here is email. So we have a property label and the value email. So if you create this property here, if I select this component again and you go to the right hand side, you see we have the component input and the first property we are having label, and this label is storing email. We can go in here, double click to select this particular email, scroll down again. Where we have this, you need to click on this, but this time you are going to create a new property. So this is going to be our placeholder. Then we can create the property. If I select this component, it's going to have two properties, that you see label and placeholder. So right now, let's quickly create another login screen. Select frames, and this time let's go back to phones, and we're going to use the iPhone 14 and 15 Pro. So don't worry about that. We have this here. So because we already have a component, all you need to do is to click on assets. Once you do that, I can now click on this local assets. On this, I'll check this login. This is the page we have this component now, login screens. So once you open this, you see we have our input here. So click and then drag this to where you want to drop this item here. So we have our first item, which is this. What we have in here is referred to as an instance of this component. So if I go back here, you'll see that this now have this diamond shape. So this is an instance. You see that's pop up there, instance. All I need to do, I can press Command D to duplicate this and then drag this down here. So let's say this is going to be our password. So for the label here, all we need to do is to change this to password. So now you notice that I have this down here. So we can actually increase the size. I'm going to fix this, but not from here. So let's come back in here. I'm going to drag the parents so we can make all the adjustment directly from the parents components here. So I'll just drag this somewhere here. So let's bring it here. To fix this issue, we're going to select the email. Let's go to layout. You notice that this have a fixed width. All we need to do is to set the width to auto. Now select this icon here, and then you're going to notice that this has been fixed. This is one application of component. You don't fix the issues from the children, but rather the parents. Let's quickly introduce the button. Click on your assets. I'm going to open this local assets, but if yours is here, it's still fine. So let's go to style guide, where we have our button component. Now you can drag one of the buttons or the button and then drop this here. After dropping this, we can now increase the width of this, but let's set this to the medium size button, and we can increase the width of this, and you notice that this is fully responsive. I can adjust this so that it matches the width of our input field. So you see, we've successfully recreated the login page, this time with components. And mind you, if you select this and try to change this to, let's say, large, you will have to increase the width again, because that's the default width. So you have to increase the width to actually get this. Now that we've seen how components work, let's look at the advanced features of components and all the properties that a component can have. Click on the component here, that's the input component. If you go to the right hand side, you notice we have properties. Once you hover over this, there is a plus sign here. If you click on the plus sign, you notice a component can have 4 different properties. We can have variant, we can have boolean, we can have instance swap, and we can have text. The only one we've used so far is the text. The variant now allows you to create another different variation of your components. Let's try to create a variant for this. I can click outside. Once I'm selecting this, let me try to create more space for this. So I'll drag this somewhere up here. To create a variant for this, if you go to the right hand side, there is a plus sign here which states add variant. So I'm going to click this. If you've used any web app before, you notice when you try to log into an account and then you provide a wrong password, sometimes there is a red line around the input field. For us to do that, I'm going to change the state here that's on the right hand side. Here, I'm going to change this to error. After changing this to error, all we need to do now is to double click to make sure we're selecting this field. Scroll down to where you're having stroke. Now select this, and I want to add a red color for this. I already have one here, so I can select this and make sure I'm changing the opacity to 100. If you want to use the same shade, the color code is FF5252. If I zoom in, you now notice that our stroke is now red. I want to do the same thing with this enter email. So I can select this and click on this. Now I can just pick this red color here. You can as well go this far and change the email. But on a very good day, I won't do that. But because we're learning, this is a bootcamp, let's just change this. How can we then apply this variant to this our design? All you need to do is to select one of this field and scroll to the top. Where we have this, you notice where you are having property 1, you can select this and then choose error. And then this, it's automatically going to turn to red. So this is another variation of this original input field. So let's make this even better. Let's select our input component, and where we're having property, we can just change this to state. If I select this, instead of having property 1, you see we have state. So this is the default state. If I select this, I can have and then an error state. So we can click this and then drag this to the top a little so that we can add one variant. If you select this, at the bottom here, you see there is a plus sign to add another variant. If you can't see that, you can just try to zoom in or out. You just get this. So I'm going to click this plus sign. So we want to add a success state. All you need to do, it's the same process. I'm going to double click here, and then where we have the stroke, I'm just going to select a green color. I'm just picking at random. I'll close this here. If you want to use the same color, it's 02EE21. I'm going to do the same thing for this field. I'll select this and let me make sure that I'm selecting this, and I'll change this to green, and I'll do the same thing here. So we can change this. So let's see, if I select this, you see we have green. If I want this work to be clean, this is just going to be, you see, state 3. So all I need to do is to double click and change this to success like this. Here, let's say we can have our email. This is an error state. Now we can change the state of this to success. And then this other one, we can keep that to maybe default. And we have different variation of the input field. The word variant is from variation. Now let's look at how we can add other properties again. We've looked at how to use variants, and I said we have 4 different properties. And that doesn't mean that a component will have just 4. You can repeat these properties more than once. If I click on this, you see we said we have variant, boolean, instance swap, and text. The next one on the list here is the boolean. We want to make this label here, input field, that's email, email, email here. We want to make it optional, so the user can decide to hide them or show them. Not the user this time, the designer. To make this optional, all we need to do is you can decide to now click on this to create that property. So if I click this, we have a new property. So this time I'll just say show label. So by default, we're setting this to true. Boolean means true or false. Name, we have show label, and the value true. I'm going to select this create property now. And then if I click here, you see we have show label. But at this point, if you notice on this side, there is this warning, not used within the component. We just created a property, but we've not applied that property. To apply that, I'm going to show you one other trick again. Double click to select the email. On the right hand side, there is this icon here. Select matching layers. Once you select this, it's going to select all the other 3 emails. So select this property, and then you see we have show label. This is under appearance. I'm going to click that again. Once you select all the 3 properties using the matching layers, select this item. You see we have the show label. I'm going to select the show label. Automatically, we've now applied this property to our component. Let's see how it works here. If I select this item, and maybe for the type of input you are creating, you don't need this email. This is enough. All you need to do, you see we have this. If I click on this, it's going to hide that input field. And then if I click this back, it's going to bring that. The same, let's do that here. I'll hide this, and we can select this other state here, and I can hide this. We can now hide the labels, and you can select this and try to adjust this here, and then you can now continue designing without showing the labels of these designs. Let's look at the next property. If you select your component and you try to add another property, the next one here is the instance swap. You remember we said the child of a component is called an instance. So to achieve this, we have to create a component, then we try to swap them. Don't worry about the grammar. Let's click on this icon here at the bottom, go to plugins, and let's search for Iconify. We're going to search for icons. Once it's loaded, I'm going to search for info, and we need something like this. So I will drag this and drop this here. So we have the first icon. The next one I want is I. So for this, let's just pick this first one here, and I will say this is from MIDI I. So here, all I need to do is to search for MIDI I. We need this closed one here. That's this one. And how did I get the MIDI I? Is from this first icon. Here, that is the package, MIDI I. So here you see we have MIDI I off. So it's from the same icon pack. So let's close this. So we want to add these items inside our input. Let me just show you a simple illustration. I'll just Command C to copy. There's no need to do that. I'll select this and I'll paste this here. You know, when an input field is a password, you want to hide and show the password. That is what we want to do here. We want to add the icon. I'm going to delete this. So, but before we do that, these 3 icons we've added, we want to convert them to components. Let me show you how you can do that at once. I'm going to select these 3 items. Where you have these 3 dots, click on this, and you can use the create multiple components. So this is going to create, you see, component 1, component 2, component 3, instead of doing it just once at a time. So now we can apply our instant swap property. For this icons, we can select this. The sizes is 24 by 24. So we can close this and let's make this 20 by 20. We have these are components. So we can now select the assets files. If you go to components, here our login screen, you see we have these icons here. So I'm just going to drag one of this. So we now have an instance of that component. If you select the files section here, when you see this diamond shape, you know that this is an instance. We want to cut this completely. So I'll press Ctrl X to cut this. We want each of this item to have this icon that I want to add. So we can do this and you can just select matching layers and press Command V or Ctrl V. So you can just drag this here. I'm just going to show you a quick trick on how to arrange this. So once you select this and you select this item here, we want to be sure of the position of this item in each of this frame. If I select this, let's go back here where we have positions. On On x-axis, it's on 323. On y, it's on 35. So if I select this here, on x is on 323, but on y, we can make it 35, or you can now make this 36. So let's make this 36 by pressing up to increase this. So I'll do this. Make sure you're selecting this 36. Now we believe that this is aligned properly inside each of this item here. But it's not all inputs that we want this to be visible. This brings us to the Boolean property. You remember I said you can apply a property more than once. Before we get to that, let's try to now apply the instant swap. So let's select this our item here, and then for this we can go to our properties, and then we can add the instant swap. Now this is going to be icon. So for this now we can actually pick a value for the instant swap. To do that, you have to select this and go to the login screen. That's where we have our icons. You see, we have all of this. So then we can now create our property. After creating that, all you need to do is to come in, double click, make sure you're selecting this eye icon, and go to this matching layers. It's going to select every other item here. For this, we can now add our property. To add the property, where we have this icon here, you see, we can now apply the instant swap property. So select this and you will see icon. Once I select this item now, it has now been applied to my component. What that means is that I can come in here and then I have icon. So let's say I want to use the other type of icon we have. All I need to do is to select this, and then we can apply this close, and I can come back here and I can apply this info here. So we've applied that instant swap property. But we can make this even better by adding another Boolean property, which is to hide icon. Come back in here, you can select this, and let's add another property here again. Make sure you're hovering over properties, then click on the plus sign. Let's add a property here. This is going to be show icon. So by default, it's true, but you can choose to make that false. So let's say by default, we don't want to show an icon. We can create this property. So if I should go to this side now, make sure you're selecting this. You see, we have a property here, but it is not in use. Double click to select this item, and we can use matching layers to select for all other ones. This time we're going to appearance. Select this, and you see we have show icon. If you apply this, the icon is going to disappear because we set the default value to false. So I'm going to select that. You see, automatically the icons have disappeared. So let's say this is our password and we want to be able to show that icon here. All you need to do after selecting this, we can go to show icon, and you see we have this item here. We just apply two component properties on one element, and you see it's working great. So I can select this and then we can do this. So we now have the instant property, and we can decide to keep playing with this. If you select this, you can come back here and try to change the icon here. Don't worry about the icon. When we start prototyping properly, we can create it in such a way that if you click this, it's going to hide the password here, and if you click back, it's going to change that. But this is just to give you an idea of how you can apply the instant swap. So you make sure that the item must be converted to a component, then it can be used as an instant swap. Let's look at the last property on our list here. If I select this plus sign here, the last one is the text, and I think we've added this already. So this is how we are going to be working with components. This is just to show you the possibilities, the properties, and how we can apply this. As time goes on in our project, we're going to create different components with different properties. If you're still watching this and you're not subscribed to this channel, please kindly hit the subscribe button. In this chapter, we're going to be covering user research and user persona. Before designing any app, you must understand the needs of the users, the problems the users are facing, and how your designs are going to solve these particular problems. With the help of the user research, we can now create what is called the user persona. From that user persona, we're going to now create a design to solve all the problems that are listed on the user persona. What is user research? User research involves gathering data about users to understand their motivations, needs, behaviors, and pain points. That's the problems now, which is termed as pain point. This data inform design decisions, ensuring that the product solves a real user's problem. We have different methods of conducting user research. The first is interview, which involves talking directly to users to gather qualitative insights. Then we can have user survey, which involves collecting qualitative data through structured questions. We can also perform user research by mere observations. So you will watch how the user interacts with similar products that you want to design. From there, you can identify some of the challenges and implement them in your designs. How can you then create a user persona? A user persona is a fictional character that represents a specific user type. Personas are based on real data and reflect the goals, frustrations, and preference of your target users. Creating a persona ensures that your designs are user-centered, making it easier to address specific needs of each user group. A persona for a fitness app might be Sarah, which is our fictional character. She is 25 years old. This is a real data, and she is an office worker. She wants to stay fit, but struggles to find time for workouts. So as a designer, once you have this information, you start thinking, she doesn't have time for workout, but she wants to stay fit. In your app, you have to try to consider things like creating a schedule for Sarah, implementing push notifications to notify her in the next 5 to 10 minutes, you're supposed to be on your way to the gym or you're supposed to be working out. So we're trying to now solve a problem based on the information from the user research. That's this persona. And you can only create user persona after conducting a user research. Let's look at some of the things that are included in a user persona. The first is the demographic here, which includes age, gender, occupation, even education, etc. And then the goals, challenges or pain points, behaviors or personality. Let's jump back to Figma. I have a design I made for a user persona, which I will share with you because we are not going to create that from scratch. You're not supposed to see this, but then let me just walk you through. I've been working on this. It's going to be our final project for this bootcamp. So this is going to be an online laundry app. This is the first page, which is the login page. And we have some page I've worked on here already. By the end of the bootcamp, I should get all the wireframes that we need for the project. And all you need to do, because this is your first project, this is going to be a guide that you're going to follow, and all the pages I've created, that's the low fidelity, you're going to transform them to high fidelity. The editable file of this wireframe will be made available to those that have purchased the lesson slides. But if you've not purchased the lesson slide, you can still get this wireframes, but then it's going to be images which you can't edit. Let's jump back to ChatGPT to see how we can create a simple user persona for this, our final project. So this is ChatGPT. Because we don't have time to start conducting a research, this is going to help us with the research. And feel free to use these AI tools for your design processes. So the prompt here is to create a user persona for an online laundry app. So there's a typo there. I use A instead of an. We now have the name of this person is Sarah, age 32, occupation location, and the background. So let's look at the background of this person for this user persona. Sarah is a busy professional working at a fast-paced marketing agency. She manages a team and work long hours, often extending into weekends. So these are some of the problems now. So from this, we know that this person doesn't have time for her laundry. Let's look at some of her goals. She wants a service that simplifies her life and saves her time. Sarah seeks an easy-to-use service that offers pickup and delivery directly to her house. That's the laundry. You come to the house, pick her laundry, clean it, and then return it back. She expects her clothes to be treated with care and garments returned clean, fresh, and neatly folded. Then eco-friendly options. As a conscious consumer, she prefers services that offer sustainable laundry options. Let's look at some of her pain points. The first is Sarah struggles to find time to do laundry amidst her work busy schedule and social commitments. She had bad experience with local laundromats, including clothes being damaged or returned with lingering odor. Many services offered rigid pickup drop-off times, which don't accommodate her fluctuating schedule. She prefers seamless in-app payment, but finds that some laundry services do not offer flexible payment. That means if you're going through this pain point, you have it at the back of your mind that in the design that we're going to create for the final project, we have to now include an in-app payment. Let's look at her technology background. So she's tech savvy and frequently uses apps for food delivery, ride hailing, and fitness. So that means creating an in-app payment feature would not be a problem for her. She prefers apps with simple, intuitive user interface that doesn't require much effort to navigate. Let's look at some of the motivations. Sarah is looking for ways to optimize her routines so she can focus more on work and personal growth while delegating non-essential tasks like laundry. She values services that can get things done with minimal hassle and provide real-time updates. In the app, we are now going to create a push notification option where she will be notified when her laundry is done, when it's in the ironing stage, and when it is ready for delivery. While she's willing to pay a premium for quality, she prefers a transparent pricing model without hidden fee. So we can create a pricing model weekly, monthly, or annually for Sarah. Sarah downloads the laundry app after seeing an ad on Instagram that promised clean clothes, deliver at your convenience. She registered quickly and scheduled her first pickup for Monday morning. The app allows her to customize her preference, including selecting eco-friendly detergent and requesting folding. She chooses to receive push notifications that keeps her updated on the status of her order. Sarah signed up for a loyalty program that offers discount for frequent users. The devices she uses include a smartphone and a laptop. These are some of the features of the app we're going to implement. Real-time order tracking, flexible scheduling, in-app payment, subscription model, support, and chat feature. Let's look at some of her codes which will be included in the user persona. I don't have time to think about laundry. I just need it done and done right. I'm always looking for services that fit into my business schedule. Quality is key. I want my clothes to come back better than they left, not damaged or wrinkled. Let's go back to Figma. And so this is the previous screen. And I'll create a new page, user research. And I already have a sample of a user persona and how it's supposed to look like. You can have other different type of design, but I'll be making this available in the description below because I don't want us to start creating this. So you can have access to this and then you can edit this for all your projects. So this is an example. We have Sarah and you can see on the demographics here, this is a template I created for us to use. Age, education, relationships, city, occupation. And here, this is supposed to be, this can have a heading, which is supposed to be quote, and we just have one quote here. You can have more than one quote. So this is the background of Sarah. These are her pain points, and this includes her goals and her personality. So these are some of the things that can be included in a user persona. And this is part of your design process. And try as much as you can not to skip this for your designs. It gives you a better understanding of the problems you're trying to solve. Let's jump back to user journey, understand the user journey, and we can move to the next section. User journey map is a visual representation of the steps a user takes to accomplish a task within a product. For example, the journey to sign up for a fitness app might include: we have search for the app on App Store or Play Store, download and install the app, open the app, then you can get the splash screen. The next page is the sign up or sign in. Then you can enter your personal details, phone or email verification. You can set your delivery address, choose a payment method, onboarding or introduction screen. The access, you can have access to the home screen. So journey maps help designer identify pain points and opportunities to improve the user experience. In any of the listed steps, if you notice that, okay, there's going to be a problem here, or user might be stuck here, you try to simplify that process. So understanding this concept helps you to create a more user-centric application. What that means is that you're creating an application based on the user need. So anywhere you see designers saying, I create user-centric application, what that means is that they research, know the problem, create a solution to that problem from that research they make. We have a simple example here for you to create a persona for an e-learning platform, one for a student and the other one for a teacher. You can use the template I shared earlier to create this. The next chapter here is responsive designs. In today's digital world, users access websites and apps from a variety of devices, including desktop, tablet, and smartphones. With the help of responsive design, it ensures that your product looks good and works well on all screen sizes. For this chapter, we're going to explore the principles of responsive designs and how to use features like auto layout and constraints in Figma to create adaptable designs. So we don't need to create two designs. All you need to do is create one design, and that design can adapt to mobile or tablet or desktop. What is responsive designs? It is the practice of crafting website and app that automatically adjust to fit different screen sizes. Instead of creating separate designs for mobile, tablet, and desktop, a responsive design adapts fluidly using flexible grid images and some CSS media queries. Mind you, that is coding, but for this, we're going to use Figma to achieve that. We have an approach that we're going to use, or a style that we're going to use, which is referred to as the mobile first approach. What that means is that we design first for mobile, then for other screens like tablet, then desktop. We start with the smaller screens to the largest or biggest screen. A popular design strategy is the mobile first design, which means designing for the smaller screen first and then scaling up for larger devices like tablet and desktop. This ensures that your design is optimized for the most limited space and functionality, which is crucial as mobile usage continues to rise. So we start with the smallest space available, that's the smallest screen, then we can go to bigger screens. To achieve these responsive designs in Figma, we're going to be using auto layout and constraints in Figma. Auto layout and constraint features allows you to create responsive components. For example, you can design a button that automatically resizes when the screen weight changes, or a layout that adjusts spacing and alignment based on the device size. Auto layout automatically arranges and resizes elements within a frame, while constraint ensures that the element remains anchored to a specific part of the frame. E.g., you can left align an item, centered align. But enough of this, let's jump back to Figma and practicalize all of this. Here in Figma, let's create a page. This is going to be responsive design. We're going to start by learning how to use auto layout. The first thing I need to add here is a text. I'll press letter T on my keyboard and let's say enter your email. Once I have this, to add an auto layout to this, make sure you're selecting the text, press Shift A. We have this inside an auto layout. The first thing I want to add is a background. Go back to the right hand side and click the plus sign here for fill. We now have a white background. Auto layout maintains the margins, the paddings for us. So here on the left hand side, you see we have 10. If you want to adjust this from your screen, where you have the auto layout, you see on the left and right, we have this. Let's say I'm making this 30. It's going to increase this, but let's keep that to 12. And then at the top and bottom, you can also increase this to 12 or thereabout. So let's say we're keeping 10. And for these are text, I need to work on this. We can now increase this to maybe 22 or depending on what you want. The goal is to make sure that we have a good height for this. And I'm keeping this at 22. If you notice something here, if I come in here and I try to type enter your email address, you notice while I'm adding this design will keep increasing automatically. That is responsiveness. If I try to now delete the content of this, you see it's going to adjust automatically. That is responsiveness. But we want to look at how we can achieve this for our designs. Let's say this is our input field. Let's say input. Let's quickly now change the color of this our text here to a gray color so it stands as our placeholder. Enter your email. And I want to adjust this. I don't know how I got this, but then I'll adjust that to 0. That's the letter spacing. Back to 0. And this is going to be, let's say, lights. Enter your email address. So let's say this is going to be a password input. Now let's add an icon here, or let's go back to assets and check if we have any icon in our login screen. So we already have an icon if you remember our previous lesson on components. So I'll drag that and add it here. You notice that once you add that to the auto layout, it's going to be automatically aligned with this item here because Figma is going to handle everything for you. But for the input field now, I want this to have enough space between them. So all I need to do is make sure you're selecting the text. You can now increase the width of this text. Let's say we are targeting 300. So all you need to do is to keep increasing this to maybe you get to 300 here. Now, for the spacing between these two items, once I select this, there is this spacing here. That is the spacing between these two items. Let's say we're making that 0. Notice what happened. There is no space. If I said this is now 40, there's going to be enough space between them. So now for this, let's say we're keeping this spacing to be 12. Now, if you try to extend the width of this, you notice what happened. It's increasing here and also here at the end. We don't want that. I'll press Command Z or Control Z. Then the spacing here should be automatic. Now let's still do the same thing. Come back here, try to increase this. You notice that the spacing at the end here is still 12 and here is still 12. If you try to increase it, you still get the same thing. What that means is that our design is now responsive. So let's drag this and you see we now have a responsive design. And one good thing here in terms of responsiveness is that let's add a mobile screen. So I'm going to look for the iPhone 13 mini, which is like one of the smallest screen we can have. Let's change the background of this first to FA. Then I can now drag this input and drop this here. So because this is responsive, I can just adjust this to fit into my mobile screen. And if you're working on a tablet, let's go back to this and I'll close this mobile phone and pick a tablet. So we are using this here, and let's copy this, Command C or Control C, and we want to paste this in here. So we need a bigger screen. Let's change this here again, FA. We need a larger input field. All you need to do is to drag this, and you see it's going to fit into this perfectly without recreating your design. All you need to do is to copy and then adjust the width of this, and we have a responsive design. This is one way to do it. Let me now show you some setback with this. Let's now select one of this, that's the icon here, and let's go back to our files and try to hide this. You notice what happened to our design here. That's the enter email address. Automatically, it has now distorted the shape of our design. But don't worry, we can actually fix that. All I need to do is to select this, our design. Instead of giving this a weight, you remember we set that to 300 at the time of creation. All I need to do is to come back in here and say this, I want it to fill the container. So now, if I select this now, you see we have our spacing 12 back. And if I try to go to the left hand side to bring back this icon, you see this is going to be 12. That's the spacing here. And this is also going to be 12 here. That's the spacing here. And if we try to hide the icon again, you see we're still maintaining our design. These are some of the challenges you're going to face when you are learning on your own. Because this is a bootcamp, we just saw the challenge and how to fix that particular problem in case you're facing them in future. So that means I can just select this, take this away. This is going to be our design. Command C to copy this. Let's bring this to the smaller screen and try to adjust this here. And you see we have our design and it's working properly. If I increase this or extend the width of this and we bring back the icon, everything still works fine, and the spacing between them here, margin is 12 and then this is 12. But at a point, we want to make sure that by the time the user gets to a particular width, they should not be able to do this because it's going to start scattering our design. So we want to add a limit. You cannot go below a particular width, and then you cannot go above a particular width. To achieve this, we're going to make use of min width. Where you have the width here, I can now select this and say we want to add a minimum width. So what that means, it will not go below this particular width that we're going to add. So let's practicalize this first and see where we want this to stop. Let's say minimum of 200 and let's say 40 here, like this. This is the smallest our input field can go. Now, I'm going to come back in here and then add a minimum width. You see, there is now a space for this. I'm going to set that to 240. This now have a min width. Let me now try to increase this. You see, it's going to keep increasing. Let's try to reduce the width of this. Once it gets to 240, I cannot go below this. So this design is fully responsive, and once it hits a particular breakpoint, the minimum width we added now here is called a breakpoint. Once you get to this breakpoint, you can't go below that so that you don't distort or spoil the design. We can also add a max width for this. Let's say I'm going to drag this out here. Let's say we want maximum width that this can have. Let's look at this and say we want maybe 1000 or 800, let's say max width. So we can select this, and now still on this, you can click here and you can add your max width. You see our min width has been set to 240. So select this and we're going to add a max width of 800. So you see we have a max width. So this time let's select this and I'm going to increase the size of this. By the time it hits 800 here, you cannot increase this particular width of this our item. I'm going to do away with this because this is now our latest responsive design. And we can now drag this here. It hits 240 and you can go below that. And when it gets to 800, you can't go above that. So this is the first example of a responsive design. And you remember you can from here convert this to a component by selecting this, and you can click this icon here. And if we double click to select this our text input, this is going to be our place holder. And the icon, all you need to do is to select the icon, come back in here and click this. This is going to be our icon. And you now have a responsive component. If I should select this and let's go back to this section, now we should have responsive design. If I pick this and I drop this here, we have this, and I can adjust this to fit into my design, and this is highly responsive. If you take this back to your mobile screen, you can also adjust this to fit into your design. One component, and it can serve for both mobile and desktop. And you can also play with the height of this, which I don't recommend, but it's fine. You can actually do that, and you still see that this is highly responsive. Now, let's go back and see another advanced way on how to create responsive components. So let's add a touch screen here, which is going to be a desktop. I'll be using the MacBook Pro 14 inches. Now that we have these three screens, all I want to do is to add a rectangle. So this can be a world design rectangle with images and some features, but for this we want to illustrate how responsive designs work. So we're going to change the color to white. I'll pick white color, and I'm just going to add some effects for this. For the drop shadow settings, I want this to be 20 and this is going to be 5%. For the corner radius, let's make that 12, and we can add a stroke to this plus sign. So for the stroke, we can use D9, D9, D9 for this. So let's say this is our particular design, and on mobile we want this to be just one column, and I'll drag this to tablets. On tablets, I'll just duplicate this. We want this to be just 2 lines, even if you're having more than 2. But on the desktop now, I'll just grab this to Command X to cut, then or Control X. So on desktop, we want this to be 4. Let's say something like this. So we need this to be very responsive. Once it's on the desktop screen, we want 4 lines. If it's on tablet, we want 2 lines. And if it is on mobile, we want just 1 column. So I'm going to select these 4 items, press Shift A to put them in an auto layout. So now that we have these items here, and let's just try to adjust the spacing between them. I'll just try to adjust the spacing between them. Let's make that 28. It's fine by me. The next thing you need to do is to make sure that we're clicking this wrap feature here. Once we've clicked this, we now need to click on an empty space. You notice we have local variables. Click this, and we want to add some local variables. In case you're having this, so all you need to do is to click this icon here and then create a collection. Once you click that and we have this collection, let's just name this our breakpoints. Breakpoints. So from here, we can now create our variable. So this variable is going to be a number. So the name should be breakpoint. The first one, which is going to be the desktop version. So I will select this, and here the width already, this is the width here, 1356. So I'll change this to 1356. But for this now, this is going to be our desktop. And I'll add another one here. It's going to be our tablet. And you can increase this so that you will see all the width or all the screens we're adding. The next one here is going to be mobile. We have mobile. So let's set the values for this. Now for the desktop or for the tablet, I'm just going to use this. So we have 318 for each of this. So 318, we're just going to do 318 plus 318, then plus the spacing between this item here to get the actual space that we need for the desktop, just to be accurate. So this is going to be 318. You can do times 2. It is going to give you this plus 28. Don't mind the calculation. You can just put 664. But if you understand that, it's fine. Then for the mobile now, we can just use 318 for this. 318. Now we have 3 breakpoints. Let me explain what a breakpoint is. A breakpoint is a width. By the time that width is being reached on your design, there will be a change. That's a change in the layout. That's a breakpoint. This name, it can be anything, but we're just using the actual name, which is breakpoint. So we just created 3 breakpoints. So for now, let's drag this frame and drop it here. When you drag and drop this here, you'll see there's no changes, because for the desktop or for the iPad, we want just 2 columns. So to apply this on our design, all I need to do is to come to where we are having our width here for the auto layout. Now click on the drop down here. You see we have apply variable. I'm going to click that. You notice we now have our breakpoint. So we're going to apply that breakpoint. But still, there is no difference. Now click on your tablet where you're having this icon here. That's the apply variable. Under appearance, we're going to now use breakpoint. But for this breakpoint, I am on tablet, so I'll make sure I'm selecting tablet. You notice what happened? Automatically, we now have 2 columns for this. Now, let's drag this same design to this. Once you do that, you see automatically it changes. But you can select this and now click on this and go to breakpoint. Make sure that this is our desktop. If we now drag this our design here to tablet, you notice it changes to 2 columns. Let's do the same thing. I'll press Command X for mobile. I'll select this and Command V to paste this. You notice that nothing has changed here. Now click on this and let's apply this here using appearance. Let's set that to mobile. You notice we now have just 1 column. So that means you can create your items, your individual items. That's this now for mobile. You remember we first measured this on the mobile screen. Then we can make them responsive. If at any point when you try to add the frames, you have been referred to add your Figma to a professional plan or to pay for that, you have to go back to the previous video we created to upgrade your Figma to a professional plan, which allows you to enjoy all these benefits as a student or an educator. Now we have some responsive designs. If I drag this to tablet, we have 2 columns. Go to desktop, we have 4 columns. Back to mobile, we have just 1 column. So this is a responsive design using auto layout. Let's look at constraints and how we can use them to achieve responsive designs as well. To use constraints, we need to add a frame. Now select these frames here or press F on your keyboard, click and drag. The green sign here caught my attention. I think I mistakenly pressed this initially, and this is now marked as ready for development. So all I need to do is to select this again and go to the left hand side where you have this icon. Click this. It's going to uncheck that. That's fine. So now that we have this frame, a frame, it's a container. Now let's add a text inside this frame. Press letter T. Just come somewhere here and type enter email. And I'm going to zoom in. So let's select this and reduce the size of this. So I'll change the height to 48. And somehow inside this, we still have our email. So if you select frame 2, you see we have our email here. All you need to do is to use this icon here. Now we have the email somewhere at the center here. Unlike auto layouts, on frames, if you want to check the spacing around this item, press and hold Option on MacBook. On Windows, use Alt. Now you see we have spacing on from the left to this. It's 18, top and bottom, it's 18 and 18 as well. So I can select this, push this a little here, and if I hold Option, I'll get 11. So press forward a little, so this should give us 12. I'm just trying to recreate what we had with the auto layout. So I have a space of 12 on the left and right hand side. So let's try to adjust this and see. You see nothing is happening here. So that means this is fixed. If I try to increase this now, you see it's responsive. And if I do the same thing here, it's also responsive. This is actually not moving. That is because the items inside a frame by default are aligned to left and also to center. Let's see what happens when I try to increase this from top to bottom. You notice it's also extending. So that means this text will be forced to be at the center of this by default. Command Z or Control Z to have the initial design. Let's go back to assets, and this time let's go back to login screen, and we want to grab one of these icons here. Once you add this, remember I said you can press Option or Alt to get the spacing here. So I'll zoom in. This is 22. So I just have to shift this and press Option. Again, this is now 12. So you might have to just keep pushing left and right to get the right spacing. But once you get that, or you measure that and you get 12 from from left to right, it's fine. So this is where we want it to be. But let's see what happens with this now. If I try to increase this, you notice that this eye, it's not moving. So all we need to do is select this eye. I mentioned earlier by default it is left aligned. So where do I check the alignment? Here we have this. So from instead of having this, I'm going to that's left aligned, because if I select this and I try to move this, you see that's not moving. So now, instead of left align, we want to make this to align to the right hand side. What that means is that if I select this and I try to increase this, you notice that the eye is now moving. If you try to move that, you see we now get this responsive design. And if I should select this and press Option and let me zoom in, Option, you see we're still maintaining that 12. So we just changed the constraint of this from left to right. But let's select this again and try to go up and down and see the limitation. You see this is moving, but this is not. To solve that problem, make sure you're selecting this back. So here you see we have top here. Instead of top, click on this and make sure that this is at the center. Now if I should select this and we try to go down, you see it's responsive, Command Z, and I try to go up, this is responsive, Command Z. And if we try to go this way, this is responsive as well. But this time we are using a frame and constraint instead of auto layout. But the limitation of having a frame is that we can't add the min width and the max width. But you can also use the variable to apply your variable. If you have any variable points, you can apply that, but you can't use the min width and the max width. This is how to create a responsive design using constraint. In chapter 9 of this session, we're going to look at how we can apply this on a real design, not just an input field. If you're still watching this bootcamp and you're not subscribed to this channel, please kindly hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next video.